Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride is a story full of rich history, rich characters, and story building that'll rival anything you've read this year. And at its heart is a small Jewish-owned storefront that becomes a melting pot, not just for the characters in the story, but also for us, the reader, as we observe this community and the events that happen and how they respond to them. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. My name's Chris, and I know how to read. Allegedly. And today we're going to be talking about the fictional Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, as well as how having similar public places can be a benefit to our overall quality of life. I'll talk about this book a little bit more in next week's video, my end of the month book review, and I don't want to spoil too much of the plot, but essentially in this book we follow a primarily Jewish and Black cast of characters in this small town in Pennsylvania called Pottstown, and primarily, or specifically I should say, in the neighborhood of Chicken Hill. I love slice of life stories with like a bunch of characters and a bunch of side plots, and I can understand how that might be like annoying or frustrating to some people who really care about the main plot line and the main story. But what some people see as like a derailing of that main plot line, I see a lot of the times as like a strengthening of our characters and a strengthening of the story, really, and making us care more about the lives that these characters are living. And if there's one thing James McBride knows how to do, it's how to tell a story, right? I can see how people might be frustrated with the pacing of this book. It does start out kind of slow, and the pacing, or excuse me, the story takes a little bit of getting into, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought that the slow beginning was kind of like a slow burn, and it all came together towards the end of the novel. But one of the things that grabbed my attention very early on in the book was the physical location, the physical Heaven and Earth grocery store. Chona, one of our main characters, her father actually bought the storefront and the apartment above it for him and his family to live in and operate the store out of. After her father moved away, the store was passed down to her and her husband Moshe for them to own and operate. It's an evolving discussion between the two, between Moshe and Chona, where Moshe recognizes that the store has never turned them a profit and wants to at least start conversations on either selling the store or closing it down, while Chona doesn't even consider that a possibility, as she uses the grocery store for more than just a grocery store. With that in mind, I want to kind of backtrack for a second and talk about where we are as a society when it comes to our social friendships and social relationships, as well as kind of our everyday community. I'll have all my sources linked in the description down below, as well as the like button and the subscribe button if y'all are digging anything about what I'm saying or what I'm talking about. But for those of y'all that don't know already, US adults have been going through a loneliness epidemic for a while now, and the 2020 pandemic has only managed to make things worse. So in 2019, Vox released an article that essentially said that 3 in 10 millennials always or often feel lonely, and in that same poll, they said that 30% of millennials have no best friends and 22% of them say they have no friends at all. A 2024 Atlantic article saw that from 2003 to 2022, American men reduced their average hours of face-to-face contact or socializing by about 30%, which is crazy. Teenagers are also making fewer friends and spending less time with the friends that they have. The amount of teenage girls who say that they've had persistent feelings of sadness or loneliness has increased from 36 to 57% in the last 10 years. Don't click off the video just yet. I know I just read a bunch of numbers and that can be boring, but I really wanted to emphasize that even before the pandemic, things were going downhill, right? And you can attribute that to a bunch of things. It could be people being on their phones and social media and binging TV, you know, all of that. Because my boy, Robert Putnam, in the late 90s, he wrote a book. I don't know where it is on screen, but it's somewhere. He wrote a book about the rise of social isolation. And like I said, this was in the late 90s. We knew this was a thing. We knew this was a thing before the PS2 came out. So like, what happened? So I had all of these thoughts in my mind before I even picked up this book, right? And I think I might have mentioned this on like my last TBR or something like that I didn't know what this book was about before I got it. I just heard it was really good. Like I heard a bunch of good reviews about it, And I told my friend, like, hey, this might be a good book that we should read in the future. And then she got it for me as a gift. Shout out roommate. But then you start reading the book, right? And you realize that the least interesting part about the Heaven and Earth grocery store is that it's just a grocery store. Chona is the one that handles like the day-to-day operations of the store, right? It is her baby. She loves it so much. And she recognizes the impact that this store has on the community. She runs it mostly by herself with some help from people in the community. And the store very quickly becomes like a hub for the Black and Jewish community in Chicken Hill, in Pottstown, that is ostracized from a lot of America. This book takes place in the 30s, you know. She gives anyone who is in need food and drink and any supplies without asking for anything in return. There's this really cute thing she does with a lot of the children in this town, where she will give them like a little candy or a cookie or something in exchange for a marble. And so she'll take the marble from them and she'll say, hey, I'll take this marble for now, but tomorrow you have to bring me actual money, like to pay for this little candy, this little sweet treat. And she never holds the kids to it. It's just a little game to make them feel like it's like an exchange. There's a character you meet later on in the story called Paper, who uses the grocery store as like her own town square and talks about like the city news and gossip, and literally is like the town crier. And you have this whole group of people that comes to the store once a week in the mornings to hear what Paper has to say about what's going on, the gossip, the rumors, everything. And the people of Chicken Hill, like, they know this is important, and they know that they need that social interaction, whether it's with each other, with Chona, when they're hearing Paper talk about whatever gossip, whatever she's yapping about. They know this is important. They know that the grocery store isn't just a place to feed their stomach, but it's a place to feed their souls, to feed their heart. And reading about all of that, reading about people coming together in like a random place that they've decided is important, really made me think about the concept of third places. If you've never heard of the concept of third places, it's super easy. It is a term coined by Ray Oldenburg, who essentially said that a third place is somewhere where people go to communicate with each other, to converse with each other, to be a part of their community that is separate from their first place, which is their home, and their second place, which is their work. Now, when Oldenburg first started talking about like what constitutes a real third place, he had a few stipulations about it. I think they're worth mentioning, but I also think that the definition of third places in kind of this modern era has evolved, especially since we started talking about them more. So I got a couple listed right here in front of me. It has to be a place where conversation is the primary activity, cost doesn't prevent someone from attending, there shouldn't be any stipulations to showing up, like it should just be a casual, no obligation spot where people can be themselves and connect with each other. And I hope that just based off the definition and the idea, the concept of a third place, you can recognize that having a third place and the concept of them is incredibly important and necessary to have like an overall high quality of life. I have a quote from Oldenburg right here. It says, "The spaces provide the foundation for a functioning democracy, a promotion of social equity that levels the status of guests and provides the setting for grassroots politics, public association, and psychological support." They provide kind of this setting for public expression that we don't normally get if we're at home by ourselves, or we don't have the opportunity for it at work. And because these spaces are like open to all, and it's a setting where everybody is socially equal, it really reinforces the idea of what it means to be in a community. I'm gonna read a bunch of numbers to y'all really quick, so don't get scared, okay? I know we're talking about books, but we're gonna go into numbers real quick. So another article by The Atlantic found that a survey said that only 25% of people live in areas with high amenity access, which is things like grocery stores and gyms and bowling alleys and other sites for chance encounters, meaning the chance that you socialize with someone you've never met before, a pure stranger. And in 2019, only about 2/3 of Americans said that they had a favorite local place. And I was thinking back to like my history, like my childhood, when I can think of someone or a group of people very publicly going out. And the first thing that came to my mind was Pokemon Go. Y'all remember Pokemon Go? People were in the streets, people were in parks, people were hanging out with each other. Like it was the first big like technological thing that also had people out and about and exercising and talking with each other. I recognize that that isn't a great example of a third place, like people were on their phones, conversation wasn't like the primary like use of this third place, and it also wasn't a place at all because it was just outside and not like a localized area. But like it was wild and it was crazy that everyone was outside just having a good time, and it felt nice, for lack of a better term. Even people who didn't like Pokemon were playing, and it was just one of those very rare times where you could forget how terrible the world was and just share a time and share a space with other people. And like I said, right, like it's not the best example, but after doing so much research on third places, like I really do think it's the spirit that counts. In a culture that prioritizes like productivity and deadlines, we often don't have the time or the energy for freedom, for self-expression. A lot of the times if I come home from work or even before work and I have free time, no matter how much I want to hang out with my friends, no matter how much I want to go to the gym, no matter how much I want to engage in third places, I'm just purely exhausted. As much as my mind or my soul craves the socialization, craves like the friendship and wanting to be with other people, my body physically cannot handle it. We saw this even more in the pandemic, where everything about our lives, our daily operations, were just becoming increasingly more private a lot faster than any of us expected. And we had good reason to, right? Like the pandemic was actively hurting people, and we had research that showed that some form of self-isolation would help. But we were already going downhill when it came to self-isolation in the 90s, right? So we didn't do anything to stop it then, and then when we were forced to self-isolate, we weren't mentally or emotionally prepared for being isolated from our communities for that long. And we especially weren't prepared on how to come back from that once all these like isolation things lifted. Before, during, and after COVID, if you want to say we're after COVID, our leisure has become incredibly private, right? You really don't have to leave the house for anything if you don't want to. Groceries delivered, job, work from home. You already sleep here. Like, when do you really have to leave the house if you don't want to? The community in Chicken Hill had to go to the Heaven and Earth grocery store, right? It was the only place that allowed any race and any nationality to come, and it was the closest to them. But a lot of the times they chose to go. It was where they could get their necessities for their everyday life, but also where they could go to find out about jobs, to find out about what's going on in their community, to see what's up with their neighbors, to meet their neighbors in the first place, you know? I think as a society, we need to do a better job of prioritizing third places, or at least just having a third place in our personal lives. Now, I recognize that that can be kind of like a privileged take, because I do have free time that I can devote to a third place, and a lot of people don't have that opportunity because of like their job requirements or their families or just what they need to get done on a regular day. But I think that for the people that do have the opportunity to take advantage of a third place, they should take advantage of that opportunity. My hope is that in doing so, it can become more acceptable, it can become more known that it's okay to just go to a place for an activity with your friends without having to profit from it. You don't need to make any money, you don't need to answer work emails while you're at this place, you don't need to talk to a client while you're at this place. You can just hang out and you can just talk, and that's okay. It can be like poetry night at a local cafe, or like a picnic with your friends at the park every Sunday, or it can be like Sunday service for those of y'all that are religious out there. And if you don't take like Oldenburg's original definition too close to heart, you can kind of bend the rules a little bit, and it can be like a drink at your favorite bar with your friends like every so often. It can be like saying hi and having a conversation with the bodega owner at the bodega down the street. It can be like having brunch at your favorite restaurant on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, you know. Main act of just getting together with other people, whether you know them or you don't know them, is an incredibly powerful thing, right? It is so easy to get stuck in like the monotony of just going to work and surviving at home, that for me, like actively choosing to spend your time with other people and actively choosing not just to be with other people, but to talk to them and to get to know them better. And if you're sharing an activity together, cool, you're sharing an activity together. But choosing to be with other people, I think, is a really powerful thing, and something that we're definitely not getting enough of. I think that third places are a concept that have gone unnoticed and uncared for in our culture, at least in American culture, for far too long, right? And if you don't have a third place or you don't even know where to begin, like I said, I have links down below about third places, and I really do think that you should put in the work, the time, the effort into finding a third place, or at even making a third place for you and your community, right? The community in James McBride's novel had no other option, right? They had no other choice but to make the Heaven and Earth grocery store their third place, right? And while I recognize that unfortunate circumstances exist everywhere, I would hope that many of us are in a position where we can decide where and how we spend our free time. And I hope that if there's anything that y'all get from this video, it's that we should be spending that free time with others, focusing only on each other and nothing else. But that's gonna be it for today's video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this little late night vibe that we got going on. I really enjoyed this book, and I really wanted to talk about it and find kind of like a cool, interesting way to talk about it. So I hope this video did that. If you want to kind of see like my more in-depth views on this book, I'm going to be talking about it in my next video, my wrap up for reading for August and September. So make sure y'all subscribe for that so you can be notified when that video comes out. Make sure you leave a like on this video. Like I said earlier, if there's anything I've said that you've enjoyed, leave a like, and also leave a comment. We did a lot of talking about the book and about third places. So if you like the book, if you have any opinions on Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, please leave a comment down below talking about it. And also, if you have a third place, if you have your own version of the Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, what is it? I really appreciate any and all engagement that y'all have with my videos, likes, comments, subscribes, all that good business. So I just wanted to say thank you. Like, my views are going up, my subscribers are going up little by little, and I really appreciate everything that each and every one of y'all have done to help me succeed in this little passion project thing I got going on. So I wanted to say thank you. I hope y'all find your third place, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.